This entire thing about placing the onus on parents, placing the onus on
No.
schools, placing the onus
We are not
on...
raising our kids.
The
internet is raising our kids.
So where is the accountability for the social media platforms? What are they doing? What is their moderation? What is happening out there? The main thing that I got out of adolescence is the fact that a child goes into the room, closes the door.
And you're okay with that for hours?
For hours, you don't know. As long as the child is at home and safe, you don't know what the child is up to. Where is the communication between the parents?
Explain manosphere, please, for the sake of audience. Kiran, everybody is talking about adolescence.
Have you watched it?
I had to watch it because I just felt that this is an important conversation that must be had. It's had some record-breaking views across OTT platforms. And then I watched it in 2 sittings.
I watched it in a complete single sitting. And I didn't have many high expectations from it.
Why?
I find that when things are very hyped on the internet, very often they tend to disappoint me. So I went in with the expectation of being disappointed.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, I thought, maybe they've made a mistake. This child is innocent and, they've mixed him up with somebody else. But then it unravels to become not a whodunit, but a why done it.
Yeah.
And then the why done it is so compelling and you're left wondering what is happening.
Kiran, as a mother to girls, and because I'm surrounded by other girl mothers, I have envied mothers of boys growing up in today's era of the influences that our children have. They are being raised by social media platforms that, girls get body dysmorphia, girls go through their own kind of bullying because groupism, they are left out. There is Snapchat that, has a Snapchat map where if 2 girls are hanging out at a restaurant or a cafe, the one who's part of their group and has not been invited can clearly see that they are together and get to know that she has not been included. And I'm privy to these conversations by virtue of hanging out so much with my daughters. And I used to think that, I never thought I was the kind of mother who would say, oh, I wish I had a son. But I just think things would be less stressful for me if I had a son. And then when I watched this show, I realized that I was just living in some oblivion because it's a really terrible world out there too. Equally pernicious for boys.
Absolutely. The pressure for boys is a different kind of pressure, completely from the pressure that girls go through. But the fact remains that it is an equally bad pressure, an equally vile pressure. If a 13-year-old in adolescence, if Jamie Miller can be pressured into believing that he's not attractive enough to...
Firstly, he was so cute.
He was too young.
Oh my God. He was even the actor, Owen Cooper, that's his first film. What an actor.
His first movie with no theatre experience, nothing.
And he improved, that scene where she says, Am I boring you? The therapist, when he's sitting in episode 3, when she says, I'm boring you. And you see him smile, the mischievous smile on his face. That was improv because she wasn't meant to say that. And when she said that, she caught him off guard. So he laughed, but he landed on his feet with that. And a lot of improv has happened in that scene. Single take.
Entire episode was a masterclass, in fact, in how to be non-threatening and menacing at the same time.
Exactly.
And I could not believe that a 13-year-old could pull that off and have me actually terrified and wondering what is going on.
From sweet boy, who's he's got his chin down, he's looking at her a little mischievously, shyly. Then he says his bit, and then suddenly he turns psycho. Right? When he says, I'm scaring you. And that expression on his face is absolutely savage. Okay.
In fact, I was just telling, our producer said that, parts of it reminded me of Hannibal Lecter, which was Anthony Hopkins in The Silence of the Lambs.
That menace in his eyes.
Nothing overt.
But it was just so subtle. It was so gripping. And so, to come back to the topic here about
raising boys. So he's
yeah.
in this world where boys feel that they have to be slotted in cells or non-incels.
Firstly, let's explain to our audience. Incel is a portmanteau of involuntarily celibate. That means, and it was coined by a woman, by the way. It was coined by a woman because she was creating like some sort of a forum for women where men who've been rejected or boys who feel rejected direct their anger for the rejection, not on something lacking within them, though they've been told outwardly you're not good looking, or you're not intelligent, or you're not smart, or you're poor, or one of the many things that it can be. But they direct their anger towards women for that rejection. And actually in India, Kiran, acid throwing is what? What is an acid victim?
Acid throwing, knife stabbing, bludgeoning.
So we've had, incel culture has been around and thriving since years.
Forever.
I mean, this is nothing new. But now that it's gone online, it's taken on a very insidious avatar.
And with influencers like Andrew Tate coming into the picture with his entire theory of the
women should be in the kitchen and cook for you.
Rule. Yeah.
And men should be hyper masculine, right?
Yeah, the alpha male and the beta male. I mean, rather rich of him to talk, seeing how he looks like.
Yeah, I'm sure some women find him attractive because all these, again, like the trad wife culture and women who want to be looked after and stay at home and whatever, you know, there's a whole thing, subculture to that. But Kiran, Andrew Tate shot to fame when he was in Big Brother and he was chucked out of that.
Because it's problematic.
Yeah, because there was a video floating around where he was whipping a woman with a belt. And then, of course, in Romania, he was imprisoned in 2021-22 around that time.
Sex trafficking.
Sex trafficking, and also he was running...
He and his brother, both of them.
Sex trafficking, pornographic content, and some sort of violence against women. But his followers say pimping is not illegal. So anyway, now he's out. But I'm just saying that his followers will find a way to justify that. Yeah. But he's also a symptom, right? A man like Andrew Tate is a symptom because his whole philosophy is what?
The toxic masculinity that he espouses.
Let's protect boys and men from feminism. Basically, that's what it is.
So this divide is very interesting, you know, that in various countries across the world, from the US to Korea to Japan, the girls and the young women are going towards the left.
Yeah.
And the boys and the men are going to the far right.
Yeah.
This entire divide that is happening, the tradwife culture is a minuscule part of the women crossing over to the other side.
And it's a minority.
Yeah. But for the majority, the divergence is so huge that boys and men are finding it difficult to relate to the girls of today and their beliefs of what they expect from a partner to a certain extent.
I think the one is that, what their idea of a woman is, what they see at home is very different from the woman they're seeing outside. Perhaps.
And trying to choose as partners.
And playing an active role. The woman is playing an active role in that relationship. No? She's not just a receiver. Yeah, but Kiran, I think the other thing is that this is also something that I discussed with Shraddha Sidhwani, who is a psychologist. It was this, that boys today are very confused about their identity. Like, who am I, right? Am I a macho man? Am I a man who has a soft side to me also? Can the two coexist?
Are they allowed to coexist?
Are they allowed to coexist? I'm not, I can't play football the way my father does, or I don't like cricket. Who does that make me? What am I then? And that's exactly what you saw in adolescence, right? The father, the sporty guy, and the boy somewhere self-flagellates himself.
For not meeting up to his father's expectations.
Yeah, or the expectation of what a standard a man image should be. So I think women are changing. So this is not a woman they're familiar with. This is not the idea of what a woman should be because their mother is slightly submissive. And then they don't know where to slot themselves. And there's a very nice line right in the first episode. I took a photograph of that. All kids really need is one thing that makes them feel okay about themselves.
Yeah, that's lovely.
So, when the two cops are talking, the female cop says in episode 1, all kids need is that one thing that makes them feel okay about themselves. So, only when you're not okay about yourself will you inflict harm on someone else.
Also, when you're not okay with yourself, you look for groups or for other people like you who will make you feel okay about yourself. And that's where this entire network, this entire manosphere, so to speak, exists. This is why it exists.
Explain manosphere, please, for the sake of audience.
So manosphere is something I think that's been coined by Andrew Tate. And I may be wrong, but it is this idea that men have to realize that 80% of women will go for 20% of men. And the rest of the 80% of the men will have to either trick women into being with them or be physically threatening to them to get them to be with them or coerce them. But the idea is that women will not go willingly with the remaining men. So,
and also the idea is to add to that, Manosphere is like a collection of blogs and websites where this idea is propagated. And at the core of this idea is the fact that it dehumanizes women.
Women are seen as commodities.
They are commodities. They are just there for childbirth or to make a sandwich for you or, as an object of sexual gratification. But women they're literally like soulless objects.
Yeah. And the man has to be the alpha man. The man has to be the provider. The woman has to be submissive. The man has to decide how the relationship goes. The woman has no say in the direction or the path of the relationship or the duration or anything. And God forbid if she has any sexual desires of her own.
Yeah.
So basically this entire subculture, which is so rampant. And as I was saying, when, I watched the entire series, the first thing I did, I ran to my son and said, Krish, have you heard of Red Pill, Blue Pill? Have you heard of Incel? Have you heard of Andrew Tate?
Kidney bean.
Kidney bean. I mean, all of that. Yeah. But nobody believes in all that, Mom.
You've done such a good job of raising
your child. I
don't
know about that.
I was thinking about you while going through this film. I was like, you know what? Two things. One is that, thank God I don't have a son. And secondly, I know I hear about Krish more now than I ever did before because we meet so much for the podcast. I was like, I bet this isn't giving Kiran any anxiety.
It did when I watched it, but luckily he reassured me that none of us think like that. It's a very small subsection who follow this, but that worried me, that there is a small subsection.
You remember lockdown time in Gurgaon, a video of a girl was circulated, right?
The WhatsApp chats?
That's right.
Yeah.
That was indicative of the same incel culture. Sure. Some boy is rejected, he seeks revenge, he gets a compromised video, whatever. So it's happening in small pockets. It's happening because children have access to the internet. You cannot take that away because, it's a double... the child will fail in the classroom because most of their projects happen online. Research happens online. So much of the education happens online that I know that some people are now saying, take away their smartphones until the age of 16. But what is it that even if you give your child a dabba phone, what is it that the child cannot download on their laptop? WhatsApp is downloadable. Instagram is downloadable. I don't think Snapchat is downloadable.
I don't think so.
And Snapchat actually is the most dangerous apparently because A, there is no record of what you have said or done. It goes. B, this streaks, they send each other streaks. I have seen that my daughter, even if she's had fever over the past few years as she was growing up, our younger one, she would say, Mama, but can I please have my phone? I need to send my streaks.
Yeah, I can't let my streaks lapse.
Right. And maybe she was doing it to bond with her friend, but what kind of an idea of bonding this is? And then I was reading up on this. What happens if you lose your streaks?
But another thing, if I may just add, this entire thing about placing the onus on parents, placing the onus on schools, placing the onus on...
We are not raising our kids. The internet is raising our kids.
So where is the accountability for the social media platforms? What are they doing? What is their moderation? What is happening out there?
Psychologists are the people who have created social media platforms to keep you addicted to it. How can you expect a child to, ration their time on it? This is like a psychological game being played on them. And then we are expecting them to rise up to that and, step away from it by having conversations. There's a fantastic article in News Laundry. I'll quote from it in just a minute. Sorry. First, I wanted to read this out to you. So there's a psychologist called Lisa Damour. She says the lack of permanence fosters risk taking without responsibility on Snapchat, right? Because kids can be bullied, sexted, texted, harassed, but there is no record of that. It just goes. And for girls, what it is doing is that girls are thinking they eventually want to become like the filtered version of themselves. It gives you so many pretty filters, flawless skin filter, thick hair filter,
features,
blue-eyed filters, and so on and so on. So what is it telling a girl? It is telling a girl that is your beauty ideal. And if you don't look like that and you look like yourself, then you're not good enough. And that's why girls from a very young age are, we've discussed it before, using cosmetics, going in for cosmetic surgery.
And body dysmorphia is at an all-time high.
Yeah, there's body dysmorphia. Because of this, there's a filter to make you skinny and so on and so forth. So at the root of this is what? Self-rejection. At the root of it is that don't present yourself as you are.
Yeah. This very uniform concept of beauty as being the need to look a certain way. The face has to be a certain
proportion.
way. The proportion, the eyebrows, the lips, the cheeks, the hair, everything has to be uniform. When you look at young girls today, they look like cookie cutters.
Yeah, they do. They all look the same.
You can't tell one
all
from
young
another.
Actresses also look the same.
I can't recognize half of them.
I can't. I keep thinking, this one is that, this one is that.
I have to call my son and say, who is this now? And why is she on Pinkvilla?
Yeah.
Mama, you don't know? I don't know. Yeah. Seriously.
Correct.
But having said that, at 13, if Jamie is incest enough to knife a girl 7 times, just because she's rejected him, she's bullied him in a certain way, put the red pill, which is red pill, blue pill, that's another this thing of the manosphere. But that violence is that she is so dehumanized. Yeah. She is not seen as a person. Yeah. She's seen as something expendable that he can just knife her and go back home, change his clothes, and then get up the next morning and say, but I didn't do anything.
Yeah, I think one is that, girls, when they are going through this disruption in their minds through external factors, they internalize it. And that's why, body dysmorphia, eating disorders, plastic surgery, from a very young age, they are thinking of it or planning it or doing it. Boys externalize it in the form of rage. So I think this 13-year-old boy has not internalized what it means to actually kill somebody. And that's what the psychologist in episode 3 tries and tells him. Do you know she's dead? What does that mean? She's never coming back.
So where do these games that they play have a role to play in this kind of desensitizing of kids?
Which games?
All the violent games that they play.
Online. Blue Whale. Yeah. And there's
PUBG
another one.
And all of them.
Kiran, that's why physical playing, a lot of kids are not doing that. They're not getting their hands and feet dirty in sand. They're not wrestling with each other in human, in a physical way. And therefore the brotherhood and the bonding is also not happening in the, even a child who's not sporty. What would our parents say? Go out and play.
Play, yeah.
Even if you didn't play and you were a wallflower, okay?
You're Kacha Limbu.
Kacha Limbu, that's what it's called.
I was a Kacha Limbu all my life.
Kacha Limbu. You're Kacha Limbu and you're standing by the wayside. Then will one more person will come and talk to you. Or you will be engaged in watching what is it called? Non-verbal clues, right? Verbal and non-verbal clues. So that will create another complex in you. You're not going to get out of this world without any complexes. So
you have
to live with it. But I'm just saying that now everything is happening in a closed room, online. Parents are assuming, he must be okay if he's so quiet and silent and well-behaved.
But that's the worrying part, when they're so quiet and silent and well-behaved. Yeah. What are they up to?
I did think about that. And this is not so that parents start blaming themselves. So the News Laundry article talks about that at length, parents are blaming themselves. But even for us, this is the first time raising children in this environment, right? I mean, to add to the complexities of being a parent, I think it's such a terrible time to be giving birth to children. Yeah. If I were getting married today, I wouldn't be having kids.
Yeah, it's probably
because you have no idea, guys, what are you signing up for? It goes way beyond painting a nursery pink and blue and yellow and green. It goes way beyond those family pictures and your child cooing in your ear and, all that. It is the toughest job you will ever do, and it's getting successively worse.
See, when we were young, our parents raised us as total analog kids.
Yeah.
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 We sort of migrated into the digital world and the online world when we were in our late teens, early 20s.
Sure.
Our kids were born into it.
Yeah.
Now, this generation of kids that is coming is already a migrant into the AI culture.
Yeah.
Where you can't believe anything you see anymore. Where you don't know bodies, you don't know faces, you don't know voices. Are they real? Are they AI generated? What is happening? Who do you believe? What do you believe? What do you not believe? And kids being left untethered in this world.
Yeah, in the cyberspace.
No ability to rationale what is real and what is not, what is manufactured, what is filtered, what is not. What do they believe? They believe whatever is being fed to them because they're so impressionable.
Yeah, but what are parents to do? Shraddha Sidhwani, the psychologist who I spoke to, said that children need to be given an emotional vocabulary and emotional tools today that parents sometimes are ill-equipped to give because they haven't grown up with that themselves. Their families were not openly talking about emotions and feelings and, these kind of concepts. And secondly, she said that kids sometimes hesitate to open up to parents for fear of being judged or punished. And when a child asks for a therapist because his friend is talking about my therapist, parents feel that they are personally being rejected, that they are inadequate because they couldn't emotionally provide for their kids, so they take it personally. But she said that the pressures today are such that sometimes a psychologically safe space for a child to go and talk to and unburden themselves is important. And therefore, therapy comes and plays an important role. But to this, I asked her this question that America, the whole nation is under therapy. And for a country where there's so much therapy going on, mental health is at its worst there.
It's at an all-time high.
And crime is at its worst there. So I don't genuinely understand to what extent can therapy really address issues. And I said, we grew up without therapy. And look, here in our generation, our parents made us anxious. And our kids are making us anxious.
So we're the sandwich generation getting constantly anxious.
I know, from both ends, but we are still resilient. We can handle it. So she said that, look, you are not dealing with these pressures.
Having said
and you do not know how to handle these pressures. And there she did have a point. That a person who knows how to address these issues, who is professionally trained in it and not a fly-by-night counselor, is perhaps required to have these conversations with your children.
That is all too good, Shunali. But, talking about therapy and how it is so essential comes from a place of immense privilege. Not every parent can afford it for the child. Therapy is very expensive.
Yes.
And secondly, therapy, I have seen children who have been to therapy. It has helped some of them immensely. And it has been good for them with whatever issues they're facing. But I do feel that sometimes it tends to isolate the child from the family.
Yeah, it does.
It makes the child feel that the only safe space or the only refuge they have, only person who understands them is the therapist.
Yeah, and the othering of the parent then.
Yeah, and the parent is actually the
a good for nothing idiot. Yeah.
A dushman.
It's true. And 100% true.
And then, the parents are resentful of the therapist.
The parents are resentful of the therapist and the child feels validated. So if a child goes and tells a therapist that, my mom sucks and my mom said this and my dad is this, and the therapist validates their feelings, so the child comes back feeling even more emboldened to dislike their parents. It's like they've been given a license.
By the therapist, by a licensed therapist.
It's true, by a licensed therapist. Oh my God, this is a topic for another day, but this is deeply concerning and it's something that every parent I know is talking about.
Yeah, it's something that I've had.
There's this therapy culture. Okay, I think that if you're going through a crisis situation and supposing your kid is being bullied at school and you send your child to a therapist, because you're trying to talk that child out of it, but you are failing at it. Okay, so that intervention at that time is probably not a bad idea. Okay? It's not a bad idea. It's a person who has studied human behavior.
It is helpful.
It is helpful. But to have therapy as like a housekeeping activity that like every week I go to a therapist.
It's not required. It's not required.
What nonsense.
It has to have a deadline. It has to end at a certain point. It cannot be a continuous thing for a lifetime.
It can't be.
Unless you have serious issues.
Yeah, but the other thing, I think sometimes what some therapists end up doing is they make your child believe that every issue is a serious issue.
Okay.
Right? Because like I remember going through a lot of difficult phases in my life where I had to read up and talk myself out of it. Okay. If you are going to be so reliant on a therapist,
where is your own self-resilience?
That's what
How
it is.
will you bounce back?
But I don't know what is the right thing. I mean, like I said, that parents need to talk to kids, that's for sure. Okay.
See, the main thing that I got out of adolescence is the fact that a child goes into the room, closes the door.
And you're okay with that for hours?
For hours, you don't know. As long as the child is at home and safe, you don't know what the child is up to. Where is the communication between the parents?
Exactly.
Don't beat yourself up over it. The child may not want to communicate with you continuously, but at least at the end of the day.
Well, kids do shut you out, right?
Yeah, they do. But at some point in the day, you need to have those conversations.
And at some point in the day, you say, shut your goddamn laptop and come downstairs.
Yeah. And
get bored. Let's go for a walk.
Spend time together, have a meal together. The boy was out killing another child and you did not know where your boy was in the night.
So, I mean, they probably thought he's playing with the friends. Right?
Okay, fine.
I think that, and in Kiran, in India, our lived reality is very different from people in the UK because you have to do everything on your own.
Possibly.
The father is coming home after his plumbing duty. Mm-hmm. The mother is cooking, cleaning, doing everything. So, I mean, and by the way, I looked up, I was curious to know because the film, I didn't get closure from at the end because I wanted to know what is the sentence this boy will get. And I did look it up. It's 15 years for manslaughter.
Even though he's a juvenile?
Yeah, for juveniles.
So they get sentenced even if they're juveniles, unlike our country where juveniles can walk free after when they come of age and probably with a sewing machine.
Like who?
I think the Nirbhaya case, the juvenile walked free.
Jyoti Singh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. How old was he? 16?
He was around 17 when he did.
And this boy, actually, I was thinking that if you commit a crime at 13, like a crime of passion, right, or rage or whatever you want to call it.
An unpremeditated crime.
Yeah. So I was thinking, I don't know if it was unpremeditated because he had the knife.
He had the knife
right?
with him, yes.
I think that what does that do to a person 15 years later or 12 years later when they're let out of jail? Aren't they hardened criminals for life?
They will be. Even if there was a chance for reform, because he was so young,
right,
that has gone.
So this legal system somewhere is really not working. I mean...
Yeah, totally. And
that Dera Sacha Sauda guy, what's his name? Ram Rahim is out.
He's on parole every second day.
Yeah, I'm just saying. So, well, anyway. So there's a family that this News Laundry article talks about. And this is more relevant for India because there are parents who are dismissing adolescence and saying, but in India, this is not happening to this extent. This is like a foreign concept, but the reality is quite different. So this article is written by investigative writer Lakshmi Priya. And she speaks about a family where the 12-year-old boy, they're celebrating Onam. And the father is like cooking and serving some food, okay? And the father says, I'm really proud of the way how my mango curry has turned out. And the wife says, yeah, it's all him, to praise him. And he says, this is nothing to be proud of, father. You are being a beta. And then, they ask him what is beta. The mother is caught off guard naturally. And then when he tells him what it is all about, they obviously sit him down and they talk to him about gender stereotypes and they tell him that, but it takes a lot of talking to him to get to the bottom of it. And he talks about Manosphere and he talks about Andrew Tate. And then she goes on to name a couple of people who I shall not name on the podcast in India, who are the Andrew Tates of India. They all have verified accounts and they have YouTube channels. They are running the exact same kind of
content,
anti-female, dehumanizing women club. One is in South and down South, one is in Punjab, one is in UP, so Haryana. So this is a really, really serious concern. And I feel that somewhere Andrew Tate's account has been taken off from everywhere. Okay.
But the damage has been done.
The damage has been done. But I just think that, I don't know, some sort of legislation in place. Instagram is a very irresponsible platform. This I'll tell you.
Absolutely.
Sometimes people slip into your DMs and give you the worst kind of abuses or send sexually suggestive content. And when you report it, it says that your report was found baseless or some nonsense like that. We didn't take the account down, but you can block the account if you like.
That's what I was saying. Where is the accountability of these social platforms that it lets such content out to children? Of course, you can't monitor it, but get that content off, right? You need to have moderators looking at what's going on your platform.
Yeah.
And if there are
complaints... Or maybe countries can then set up their own, a board, not like a censorship board, but censorship for the sake of children for this kind of pernicious content.
There's all talk about the broadcast bill and what censorship would bring in. So there is the good, the bad, the ugly.
Yeah.
The good could be this, that content that we don't really want our children to be looking at could be taken off.
But they can watch it with VPN, no?
They can do that.
Unless you ban VPNs also.
Yeah. I'm very interested in the fact that Australia announced that it was banning social media for kids
until the age of 16.
How do they propose to do that, frankly?
I don't know. The mind boggles.
Because, all you have to do is just scroll and click any random date and say that's your date of year of birth.
Exactly. I don't know how they're going to do it. But I think that what this film is doing is parents are going to get more vigilant now.
Yeah. A lot of parents, I know some parents who say, like, we need to trust our children and we need to be okay with what they're doing. We need to believe that, they're doing the right thing. We can't infringe their privacy. You can damn well infringe their privacy.
And this is a minefield. If you can't take away the net from them, but you can walk alongside them. You can navigate it with them,
And make yourself and your spouse a place where a child feels free to come and talk about anything.
Yeah.
Because it's very difficult for kids to come and talk to their parents about anything, and they always will feel judged or criticized or whatever. So
that's why I'm just saying don't have kids.
The ultimate solution.
After watching this movie, I'm sure people who watch this movie, some of them have decided that in this kind of atmosphere that we're living in, better not to have kids.
See, there was already climate change.
Yeah.
There was already radicalization. There's wars happening everywhere.
This is some psychological apocalypse, yeah? It is.
It is. It is scary.
It's alarming. And I have to say that, all these people will grow up now and say that, let's reduce the internet, blah, blah, blah. I feel that, my kid's generation was collateral damage.
Absolutely. And interestingly, the ones who have created these social media applications do not let their kids near it.
All of them. Of course.
Because they know what it can do to the kid.
They know what it can do to the kid. But the other thing is that even depriving your child... So here's the thing, okay? I've tried taking away social media from my daughters through different stages of their life. And then they feel left out. Because they'll be like, but everybody is chatting only on Snapchat. Everybody is chatting only on that Instagram group. And so if you say no, you can only chat with them over the weekends. Then the child is left out and then bullying happens. So what do? You take it away from them. Then they are the weird kid in the class.
Yeah. And they will blame you.
They will
and
even if they don't blame you, they will suffer. One way or another, they will suffer. If you yield to it and give in to it, then unless you can breathe down their neck and constantly monitor it. And a lot of working mothers do not have the luxury of doing that, Kiran.
Not only that, you may think that, I have their password and I can access their account at any point.
They have what are they called?
Burner accounts.
Burner accounts, yeah. Then?
They have burner accounts.
Exactly.
They are very clever. So at the end of the day, what is a parent to do?
So, Shravan he ticked off a younger one about something that she had posted on her Instagram account. He said, these shorts are too revealing or whatever. And so she blocked him. So he kept telling her, unblock me. So I told him that you're not going to really get to the real account anyway, even if she unblocks you.
Absolutely.
Because...
So the trick is always to follow their friends and to see which are the burner accounts of friends are following.
No, you still burner accounts are closed accounts. You don't have access to
but you know that they're there and you know which ones they are. At least.
Yeah. There's this fantastic quote by psychologist Lisa Damour. She says, girls suffer under the weight of perfection. Boys rage under the weight of rejection. And that's exactly what we are seeing in society today.
This brings me back to this quote by, I forget who said that boys are afraid that girls will laugh at them and girls are afraid that boys will kill them.
Oh, yes, I know. But they're not afraid boys will kill them yet.
They are now.
Now, older girls. Our younger girls are not.
Yet.
They are not aware. They are just thinking the boys will not like them, will not date them, Acha, they are also saying that shows like Adolescence are perfect openings. Ask your children, does this feel real to you and what would have you done?
Okay.
I think that really this show, one school in Bombay sent an email out to all the parents saying, please watch Adolescence and sit with your children and make them watch it and then discuss it. And I don't think that's a bad idea.
I think the Prime Minister of the UK said that.
Keir Starmer has already said it.
That it should
but
be
this is called television.
This
is called storytelling.
Absolutely.
Because, for all the vapid stories that are being told out there, a story which is as hard-hitting as this and that makes us all sit up and think. And, this also tells you that human beings from a very young age are capable of doing terrible things when they think no one is watching. Whether that is Snapchat or it is online bullying from fake accounts or real accounts, or it is going out in the night with a knife and stabbing a girl. He didn't know he was being recorded and watched, right? So even the best of the human minds, it just shows what kind of depravity
humans are capable
of.
Of course. Another thing that really, the last scene, the last episode, there was this really lovely thing. The sister is this hyperachiever.
And they kept saying, we made her also.
So we made her also. Where did we go wrong?
Yeah.
We made her with the same love.
Yeah.
Parents,
my heart went out to them because this does happen.
Yeah, you made your children with the same love, but one goes one way and the other goes the other way. Who's to tell? At the end of the day, you can't just keep blaming yourself. But somewhere, as I read somewhere, the entire village is failing our children. They say it takes a village to raise a child. From the school, from the education system, to the media, to everything that children are being surrounded by.
Yeah, there are more external forces at play. You can just be vigilant at home. As a parent, all you need to do is don't lecture, talk, and be vigilant because that's all that you can do, unfortunately.
And be the safe space for your child.
Yeah. Kiran, vaping, my God, worldwide, the amount of vaping that is happening, girls are vaping, boys are vaping, because there was a stigma to smoking.
They've started vaping.
And if you smoked in your dormitory, in a hostel as a kid, they'd find out vaping can somehow camouflage the smell. And vaping is far more toxic than smoking. So even if you ship your child away to a boarding school, thinking that they will confiscate the phone there'll be a more regimented life, there's no guarantee that your child will get out of that completely unexposed to the dangers that lurk out there.
Talking about the dangers in the house, of course, there's the manosphere on the internet. There's also porn on the internet.
Yeah, porn, of course.
Which boys are accessing like nobody's business.
And that is the ideas they're forming about sexual relationships, that performative thing that they watch is how sex should be performed with girls.
And you have to sit them down and tell them hello, this is not real. This is prosthetic.
Have you spoken about it too?
Yeah, I have.
Krish?
And nobody is going to pounce on a pizza delivery boy. Just get that out of your head. You can spray all, this was before the porn, you can spray all the acts you want. Nobody is going to turn towards you and be sultry.
Yeah.
You'll just
Axe Dio.
You'll just irritate a bunch of people in an elevator, that's all. So these conversations need to be had at home.
Yeah.
You can't ignore the fact that your child is accessing porn, is watching porn. What kind of porn is he watching or she watching?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say just he or she or they. Everybody is accessing it. There's a curiosity at that age.
Of course.
We were sitting...
It's also easy access. It's not just curiosity.
In our time...
you could be curious, but you couldn't access it.
I didn't have anything.
You could read Harold Robbins at best. Okay.
Or wait for that the 12 o'clock show on DD, which was the X-rated, whatever rated movie, foreign movie.
Utsav and all they used to show also.
Utsav and Emmanuel and something or the other.
Yeah.
Which was soft erotica, not even porn.
Correct.
And then 90% of it was left to your imagination. But here, everything is in live living color enhanced.
That's exactly what it is. So you know what? It's just also, it's being normalized. Everyone wants to belong. So if 10 guys are sitting and talking about porn, no kid is going to say, oh guys, I'm against porn. My mother says this is not what reality is all about. We are still too young to watch porn.
Absolutely.
Right? He's going to find a sneaky way to watch it so he belongs. And the other thing is, and this is again something that Shraddha did say, she said that it's very strange. She said people are becoming cruel. Okay, girls are rejecting boys in a very cruel way, in a very unkind way. Because of the pressures kids are living under, that humanity is eroding very quickly.
Okay.
And of course, parents also are very result-oriented, goal-oriented, right? I mean, I'm not trying to pat my own back, but I've often had conversations with my daughters and said, which is the girl in your class who doesn't have friends? Why don't you try and talk to her? Of course, there's always every child who will say that, mom, she doesn't talk. What do I do? Other kids will make fun of me. I mean, when they were young, now my girls are old enough. But I'm just saying that a lot of parents today are goal-oriented. So their child is either attending classes, or sitting with the counselor to prepare for university. So, or doing their homework, right? So between all of this, the pressure they have, they do not know their own thoughts. They can't process their own feelings. And they do not know, what do I want? So then what happens when you are not open to you can't hear your own voice. You hear all the voices around you. And then you just embrace those voices and say, oh, that is what everyone wants. That's what I should want or I must want. And so that time for boredom, which, every human being must have when they are not constantly on, when they're just sitting, getting bored out of their brains, thinking, reflecting, is the only time they'll be in touch with their own feelings. And I think schools must make some sort of little meditation or yoga mandatory. It should be a class, okay? Like along with PE, which is mandatory, it should be compulsory for kids to do that. And I also feel shows like Adolescence kind of a show, the kind of TV that teenagers are consuming today, instead of just focusing on gossip and murder and vampires sucking each other blood and sex, to bait kids for more views, I think they need to now start telling stories in a more responsible way. It's about consequences. When kids know the consequences of what this can do to your mental health.
Yeah, possibly.
They might get more responsible.
They could. There's a very good initiative by a school in Pune, I forget which one, where they actually sit the boys down and talk to boys about how they have been fed gender stereotypes and how they must counter those, and how girls are not
commodities
of their attention and all that. And it has been quite a success, I believe.
Is this Rishi Valley?
No, in Pune. Some schools in Pune, I read a while back.
Fantastic.
Are doing this. And this is not the schools for the people from a higher section of society. It is for people coming from the lower sections, from the underprivileged sections, where, these attitudes are a little more strong than they are in other sections of society. And I think that is something all schools should adopt. Just sit the kids down and have these conversations with them as to what are you being fed and what you should believe and how you should use your own brain.
Yeah.
I think what is happening in this entire thing is being fed so much information, kids are forgetting to use their own brain. Now, they never really learn to use their own brain.
That's it. That's what it is.
And ask questions.
But who's going to talk to girls, Kiran? This is my question. You look at the Kardashians. You look at the before and after. You look at all the before and after faces, okay, including the mother. They've all had so much work done, and then they've gone on to become these internationally famous global fame that they have and wealth that they've created. What is it telling girls today? That don't be satisfied with the way you look, you can transform yourself and become a Kardashian. Who's going to talk to the girls? And even if you talk to them, this is the family that's being idolized by them.
Totally. See, it is the influencer culture. That is the other.
Yeah, but the wrong influencers. That's what I'm saying.
So then it all goes down to media. What the media is promoting. This is what the media is promoting.
You know that I unfollowed one terrible account called Insta Bollywood because I think they all take money from these girls wanting internet fame, who parade around in clothes that leave nothing to the imagination. and they walk up and down showing their all their
Everything.
body parts. Okay.
Everything.
And I just thought that she's not even an actor. I don't know why you're showing her butt to me. And clearly she pays you for this sort of a thing. You're titillating people. This is soft porn. And I just think that if more and more people unfollowed such accounts, they would stop making their livelihood like this. But the fact is, people enjoy this.
Yeah, nobody's unfollowing those accounts except for you,
Yeah,
Shonali. Everybody is watching them, polishing their eyeballs and watching them.
So Kiran, so then nothing's going to change. Nothing changes if nothing changes.
The only thing that can change is we need to be more aware of what our kids are up to.
Yeah.
We need to sit on our kids' head. We need to give a damn about their privacy and to be aware of what they're watching and what they're doing. I'm sorry, until they're adults, you have every right to know what they're up to on the internet.
Yeah.
And it may make you a mean parent, but just go ahead and do it.
Yeah. What Shraddha said was that while girls are feeling empowered, okay, she said kids are using harsher language with each other, and girls, the same empowered girls, are using harsh language while with each other and with boys while rejecting them. So that insensitivity, lack of tolerance is causing a lot of hurt and pain from girlfriend to girlfriend, as in when girls are being bullied within their own peer group and being left out, and from girls to boys. Okay. She also said that early sexual experiences are actually not helping children differentiate between their physical desires and their emotional needs. Okay. Mm-hmm. People 13 to 23 is the exact period when your self-identity develops. And at that time, if you start experimenting with love, romance, sex, and so on and so forth, so early, it is going to really create a knotted ball of emotions within you. Mm-hmm. And then the slightest rejection will make you want to hurt another human being.
Yes, absolutely. Because it is so intrinsically tied up with your own self-image, self-esteem.
Yeah. So I think that even when your child becomes 18, you have to still keep those...
Until they're 23, 24.
Yeah. 13 to 23 is a very, very, very important stage of a child's life in forming of their idea of self. And I just think that unstructured play and forcing every child, go learn a dance, go learn to play a piano, even kickboxing, that's a great outlet for rage.
Some physical
rather
activity.
Than PUBG, you know. So that's all for the gyan from us after. But I have to say that this has been a very edifying last 2 days for me, because I've been reading up so much that, I mean, I just feel that to be aware is to be armed.